Well, good evening, everyone. And I would say sometimes you have to trust a higher power, and I think that's what got me here at 1 a.m. last night. This is my second time in Canada in the last 6 months, and if I'm going to be invited to Canada again, of course I'm going to say yes. So it's lovely to be here. So I want to start off just by asking a show of hands, like who remembers those phones that you used to have to put your finger in? Yeah, this is almost everyone here. This is great. But I distinctly remember as a teenager being on the phone and wondering, is my mother listening to this? Or is my sister listening to this? So young people have no idea what these are or how. You show them the phone and they've got no idea how it is you're supposed to use it. But if you did raise your hand, you're probably a member of this club that I joined. Unfortunately, it's not a very exclusive club, but I joined the 50-year-olds club last year, so I turned 50. Now, according to people in my company and some of our clients, that makes me a pre-senior. Now, I just got over being in my 40s, so if you tell me I'm going to be a pre-senior, I think I might need some therapy. But anyway, there you go. But it does get you to think, you know, these turning points when you turn 40, when you turn 50, when you turn 60, you think, what's life going to be like? Okay, so what's life going to be like in 10 years? So we can all think, I know that there are people of all different ages here, but let me take you through the thinking of a 50-year-old. So in 10 years, do you know what I'm, honestly speaking, what I'm thinking? Is, am I going to have enough money? Like, do I have enough money to even be thinking about retiring in 10 years? And I'm from Australia and I live in Japan, so I'm thinking, well, am I going to be in Japan or Australia? Could I even go home? Would they have me? And so you do think about, yeah, I think financial comes up and issues about retirement. When I'm 70, I'm thinking, you know, will I be boating around in the Mediterranean, or, you know, will I have gone to the places on my bucket list? You know, am I in the middle of doing that? And when in 30 years, when I turn 80, if I make it to 80, I probably need to make some lifestyle changes to do that. But nevertheless, if I make it to 80, I'll be thinking, well, what's my living situation going to be like? Would I be thinking about some sort of assisted living at 80? And who's going to be around me? And who's sort of going to be looking after me? Is what you start to, at least that's what I start to think about. Now, if you're Japanese, and I do see that there are some people who look very much like you come from Japan in the audience, we have a very interesting, I could say, situation in Japan, because if you're 50, there are about, you know, when after our parents had us, people stopped having children to anything like the same extent. So there's far less members of the population who are younger than us. So who's going to look after us is a very interesting question as we age. Now, I'm lucky enough to have a holiday house in Japan down the coast in a place called Izu. And this is a picture from my house when it's snowing, and this is actually an abandoned house in the back there. Now, there are a lot of abandoned houses in Japan because the population is shrinking. So people who built holiday houses, for example, they no longer need them, or people pass away and their children aren't interested in the house, and the houses just end up being abandoned. Now, this house was offered to me, and this is, we have a view of the ocean here, not when it's snowing, but this house was offered to me for the equivalent of 50,000 Canadian dollars. And because I'm an idiot, I said, oh, that's too much. And then someone else bought it, of course, and they've built a house now, so it's taking away some of my view. But why was it so cheap? Was because there was a gentleman that passed away on his own in that house. And this is a phenomenon that they call kodokushi in Japan. And it's estimated that about 70,000 people a year in Japan are dying by themselves. And so yes, this is what life could be like if we don't make efforts to stay connected. Now, this is a picture of the Japanese population here. We have births of about 723,000. This is 2024, so very, very recent data. We have deaths of 1.6 million. We have a net of births over deaths of almost 900,000 people. So you could probably fit the population of Regina in a few times into that figure. We're not particularly good at having migration in Japan, but this figure of net migration of 500,000 is the largest ever that we've had in Japan. But we still have a net population change of 377,000. So our population in Japan is both shrinking and it's getting older. These are the data at the same time period from Canada, so you guys are quite well balanced in terms of births and deaths, and net immigration is extremely high at almost 1.2 million. So your net population change is 1.2. Now Canada is about 1/3 the size of Japan, and your net population change is more than 1 million, and we at more than 3 times of the population actually are losing in net terms about 350,000 people a year. So our demographic situation is quite serious. If we look at the size of the labour force, the working age population here, you can see we're going from 75 million in 2020 to a projection of 47, just under 48 million in 2060. So if you look at it in some ways, we could see that the application of technology that helps us as we age, or helps us be more productive, is almost like a slow-moving emergency. This is a very, very challenging picture that we're facing. So I want to change gears a bit and introduce you to a fictional alter ego I have. This is Hiroshi. He's 50. He likes all-you-can-eat sushi and walks on the beach. He's married to a lady called Haruka, and they have a daughter called Mina. Unfortunately, Hiroshi's father passed away last year, but his mother, Yuko, is still with us. And Yuko is a really great example of this concept that I want to tell you a little bit about, called pin korori. I'm sure the Japanese members of our audience know all about it. But I have to say, I met someone who I thought I've met Hiroshi, like he was 50, and his mother was texting him all the time during our conversation. And he was like, I'm so sorry about my mum interrupting us, but she wants to give me every detail of what's going on today. And I thought that was fantastic. She's engaged, she's in her early 90s, and she's using a smartphone, and Yuko's a little bit younger. But pin korori, I think the best example I can think of someone that embodies this idea of pin korori was our late Queen, who I think she met the new Prime Minister, had a sick day, and then passed away the next day. So she was fully engaged until the day that she died. And it's very common when you're in Tokyo, you'll go to small ramen shops or Chinese food shops or whatever they are, and you will see some very old people in the kitchen, and doing the stir fry and dipping the noodles in the water. And some of these people are in their 80s, and they get featured on TV as well. I mean, they're in a sense almost celebrities, people in their 90s doing this. But this is the idea of pin korori, is that we do what it is we're supposed to do, 100% contribution, and then one day we drop dead. That's the ideal. It's not a long, slow death. It's a short death. And you make it a short death by doing what you love. So I remember, I don't know, maybe you remember, there was a movie in the 90s called Sliding Doors, and Gwyneth Paltrow starred in it, and it had this kind of counterfactual kind of plot to it where it asked the question, what would have happened to Gwyneth had she got on that train instead of missing the train? You know, would she have found the love of her life and so forth? And I thought, you know, when we think about the large ageing population that we have in Japan, incidentally, our population in Japan is the oldest in human history. There has never been a population as old as ours. We have to think, well, what's life really going to be like? Let's put aside our best hopes, and let's look at two different scenarios. So the first one I want to paint is a less optimistic picture of Yuko's life. So she gets up at 8 a.m. in the morning and she feels particularly stiff on that day. There's actually a little bit of blood on the sheets because as you get older, sometimes your skin gets thin and you can have little bleeds. And I've certainly seen that with my dad as well. He has that problem. At 10 a.m., it'd be fair to say that Yuko's a little bit depressed. She's going about her task with a sense of detachment. She's just sort of going through the motions. And she noticed that her hands are trembling a little bit more than usual. At midday, she's eating alone. Loneliness is really a frequent companion for her, and she misses the days when the family was with her. At 2:30 p.m, she feels a slight dizziness, but she brushes it aside. She's getting that quite a bit lately. At 4 p.m, she takes a fall. She trips over a rug and she falls hard, and she's in pain, but she can't really get anyone to help her. Now, Hiroshi, her son, finds her a full 2 days later. Now, I know that sounds extreme, but I have a friend that lives in Vancouver whose elderly mother lives in Osaka. And this literally happened to my friend. He came back from Japan and turns up at the door, and his mother has been on the floor for 2 days. This actually does happen. Now, could Yuko's day have turned out differently? We would certainly hope so. And what we're trying to do through technology is to prevent a scenario like that. So in this other scenario, Yuko would have started her day with confidence. She's actually just been using these sheets and pajama set together that minimises friction, so she doesn't have that problem with her skin. She's using a wearable device that actually counteracts the tremor in her hands, so she can pick up a cup of tea and drink it. At 10 a.m, she's using a personalised AI-powered exercise machine. It tells her exactly what she should be doing so that she doesn't overdo it and that she works out exactly at the right pace. At 12:30 p.m, she calls up her friend who's actually in a facility, but there's no problem with them having video calls. And her friend is telling her about the amazing experience that she just had in Paris, using virtual reality and no bed bugs. It was very, 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 very happy about that. At 2:30, Yuko's smartwatch sends a message to Hiroshi. So he knows that he has to go and see his mum. So at 4 o'clock, he comes and sees her. Yeah, she looks like she's okay. Look, she just has a short observation in hospital, but she comes home. Now, all of the technology that I just showed you, this is all available today. And some of this is produced by Canadian companies as well. So the sheets are created, a company called Comfort Linen, which is based in British Columbia. And the hand stabilizer is from a company called Steadyware in Toronto. So Canada is actually really leading the way in many ways in age tech. There's a really interesting book I would recommend if you're interested in this topic. It was written by a very lovely lady called Karen Etkin. who is from Israel, and she came out to Japan to speak for us in 2022 when we first launched our Living Best initiative. Now, Karen outlines a very comprehensive vision of age tech. So, for example, I'll just take you through some examples of age tech that we can use. So, first being ambient sensors to control environments. Now, in a wider sense, sensors are very, very interesting. There's a Canadian company called PontoSense that we worked with briefly last year that has radar-based sensor technology that not only knows is someone in the room or not, or have they moved, but it can also to some extent see inside your body to look at vital signs. So what we're able to do with sensing is really, really becoming more and more interesting. You'll notice that with the use of things like Apple Watch, Apple and other companies are collecting a lot of data, and that data is going to be used to basically create insights for us. And importantly, it's not just about knowing the information. You'll probably already notice that your Apple Watch says it's time to stand up and so on and so forth. So getting us to do things and move and act is very important. Now, most people you speak to are quite positive about the idea of having a robot that can help you with all the drudgery of cleaning and doing the washing up and doing the gardening and that sort of thing. So certainly smart appliances with robots will help with chores, but even, I joked today, who wants to talk to their washing machine, but it's kind of, it's getting a little bit like that. Mobility is a very, very important issue. My parents lived in Sydney. They lived in an apartment my father drove, and Sydney does have trains, but they're not that suited to elderly people. And when my father had to stop driving, that was it for my parents. They really had a hard time getting around, and I said, well, why don't you just use Uber? And then after a couple of incidents with various Uber drivers, we were just like, no, okay, this is not going to work. So end-to-end on-call safe mobility is an extremely important service for people, and it's very, very important in Japan as well, because there are a lot of aging people in rural communities that need transport. So that's coming. But it's not only about physical deficits and so forth. Social engagement and stimulation is extremely important, and there's very high usage of brain training apps in Japan, actually not only among aging adults. It has a very wide range of users, but technology that helps us stay engaged with other people, I think is very important. And entertainment. I mean, for goodness sake, let's make it fun. Let's have some fun. Fun doesn't need to stop at a certain age. Technology should be helping us to be entertained and to see new things and to laugh and to cry and all of that kind of good stuff. Now, this is the population structure of Japan. So on the bottom here, we've got like the ages going from 0 to 100. The teal is the part of those bars is the males, and is the females, and the yellow is the males. Now, interestingly, for people in my club, the median age in Japan is 50. So I'm not old in Japan. I know people think I'm old now because I've got grey hair and I'm 50, and it's okay, I'll take it. When the first time someone said to me, "People of your generation," I was like, that was a rite of passage for me. I had to go home and think about it. But 50 is not old. So half the population is older. Now we have here on the right, you see that spike of people in their late 70s? That's the baby boomer generation. So they were born after the war. There was a big baby boom in Japan, as there was in a lot of countries. Now, the people who are around 50, they're the children of those baby boomers. So it's a little bit different to the population structure in the US, where the Gen Ys are actually the biggest population. And then Gen X is actually a relatively small population. Japan's sort of equivalent of the Gen X, what they call the baby Dankai. The baby boomers are called the Dunkai, and their children are called the baby Dunkai. This is a very large group. So, a couple of observations about this. The first is that the baby boomers are quite well looked after. In fact, there's enough money in the insurance system, and there's enough people to look after them. This is very good if you are a baby boomer. For people in my generation, it's not such a great picture, because if you see how the population kind of, when it comes back, please imagine what that looked like. There's just not the same amount of people to look after us. So, but interestingly, we can look at glasses half full or glasses half empty, right? Because we're introducing technology now at an accelerated pace, which can be immediately helpful to people who are baby boomers. And we, who are the children of the baby boomers, are learning how to use that technology. And we will take that in through as we age. So I think there is a long-term, just even looking at this as a business opportunity, there is a long-term picture there that is waiting for us. But I'm not going to wait for the slides to come back. Or should I? Okay. All right. So creating innovation successfully for aging adults is what people call in the design thinking community or the innovation community is what they call a classic wicked problem. So it's actually very hard to innovate successfully for aging adults. And the first problem is that when you're older, we have kind of like a diminished motivation around adopting new technology. We just, do you agree with me? Yeah. Like we're just not so interested in it. And I know, even at age 50, I know that for myself. There are things like in my 20s where I would have just gone really deep on. And now I'm just like, yeah, I'll just use Apple for everything. Like I don't have to think about it. It's all seamless, all the rest of it. And also our ability to learn new things, as we know, does diminish as we get older. So if you're talking about new technology that I'm not interested in, that I have to learn how to use, you can just forget about it. That's here we go. We're back. Okay, back in business. So that's really an issue. Do we want it, and can we can we engage enough in it? Right, wrong button. That was my fault. We have rigid institutional policies and practices, right? So even you look at an assisted living facility, like these are very hard to manage business, and they're businesses a lot of the time as well. It's very hard to manage. So people coming in and saying, oh, I've got this new thing, it's going to be great. Yep, it's going to have to change all the workflows that you have to accommodate this new technology. And people are like, yeah, I don't think so. Also, the government wants to support innovation. If there are people here from the public sector, yes, I recognise that. But also the public sector is responsible for not overspending on innovation that won't work as well. So while the government wants to support innovation and knows that it needs to, it's also quite risky. And governments are not really set up very well to take risks sometimes. And the same thing goes for large companies as well. And caregivers, it doesn't matter whether you work for a facility or whether you're providing care at home. Caregivers are on the edge the whole time. And I'm not complaining, but the worst 24 hours of my life was being left alone with my mother, who has dementia and who had dementia and COVID at the same time. And the rest of my family was completely engaged. There was absolutely no one else. I'd just flown in from Japan, and I was like, and I remember debating with her when to take the different medications. It was all laid out, and she said to me, well, it's all laid. I said to her, it's all laid out here, it's on the box. And she said, oh no, but the box is wrong. And I'm like, well, I don't want to kill her. So anyway, like it was challenging. And I just say, like, that to me, if people are doing that every day, I take my hat off to you, because like this is a really tough job. So if you say to people, oh, I've got this great new thing, they're like, please, this is not practical for me. And these are my parents here. So these issues that we have with technology, I thought, okay, I got sick. My parents called me every Saturday. It was great. They called me. I didn't have to remember to call them. And I'd get a call every Saturday my father used his iPhone, and I'd get about 3 phone calls before I could get through. And it was always like, have you got the speaker on? Is the volume working? Dad, have you sure you've got the speaker on? And he's going, where's the speaker? And I'm like, oh, well, I can't really explain it to you, but you did it last time. And anyway, it was all, and my mother was like, what are you doing? So there was 5 minutes of that every time they called me. And so I thought, okay, I'll get a smart speaker. You know what? I'm going to be smart here. I'm going to get an Apple speaker. Like, I know that there's Alexa, but Apple must be so easy to set up. So I set it, so I got it out of the box, because you should just be able to plug it in, right? I could not make that damn thing work. I was at it for 6 hours, and it wanted to interview every member of the household to like get their voice print, and yeah, it was too much. And anyway, so I got it working. So excellent. I felt like a genius. I was actually able to get it working. So I said, Dad, all you need to do is just say, hey Siri, call Dominic. I could be in Canada, you can speak to me. I could be in Japan, I could be in Australia, I could be anywhere. Not only that, you can call my brothers and sisters. Like, I come from a family of 5. Like, they're never short of anyone to speak to. But my father, he doesn't say, hey Siri. He says, hey Siri. And then Siri's moved on, Dad. She's talking about something else, and then suddenly it starts playing music, and like Dad's saying, how do I turn this off? And I'm like, I have no idea. So anyway, it didn't really work out, but to me that's just such a great example, and really it's not to bag Apple, because I mean they make amazing stuff. It's just that the problem that I was solving in that particular instance was my problem. It wasn't their problem, and that's really why it didn't take on. So I think we've done a lot of work in the last 5 years among ageing adults in Japan. There are some things that we've learned from that, and the first is that ageing adults are not a monolithic group for technology adoption. People have a capacity to uptake technology at different rates. Now, we've worked out that probably, optimistically, about 10% of the population of ageing adults, that are people who are over 65, are likely to be really into technology for themselves. So I'm very interested in that group of people. And for those of you who are over 65, I can assure you you're in this group, because you've come to this lecture today and it is, this is self-evident, right? But these people, they're just naturally enthusiastic people. They're enthusiastic about everything, right? And when I think about it, I think back to the 80s, these people were probably some of the first people to get car phones. So I've got that idea in my head. I remember when car phones came out, like they were awesome, weren't they? It was amazing. You could actually talk to someone in your car, and when I was a kid, and I used to actually borrow my dad's one, and everyone would look at you and say, oh, he's got a car phone. It was very, very cool at that time. So the early adopters, yeah, I can imagine them doing that. And now they're up for age tech. And we need people, we really need to cooperate with people and co-create with people that have that natural enthusiasm and that natural facility for technology. Secondly, if we look at what people are actually telling us that they want, in general, this is not just from technology, but people want to stay independent. This is very easy to understand. We don't want to rely on other people, and we want to stay socially connected. But the solutions that we have, they have to be non-intrusive. Now, I thought that the Apple speaker was the epitome of a non-intrusive solution, and it may well be one day, but I can tell you, as long as it's intrusive and people have got to do things, and you've got to change the way you're doing things, and you've got to do what the technology wants you to do, it's going to be difficult. And also, and importantly, emotional well-being is just as important as your physical well-being, because people it's a little bit circular, but people who are open to age tech in some respects are the people who need it the least, because they're actually motivated for their own cases, and they're proactive, and they're not really the hard cases where you could see that a lot of intervention might be needed. But certainly a lack of intuitive design and also the digital literacy on the part of the user does limit engagement. So it's really an area that's important, and that's one where we focus on. So with my background in consumer insights and qualitative research and user testing, that this is an area that I'm particularly interested in. But it's very much the case that there's no silver bullet. I thought I had a silver bullet with the smart speaker. I did not. There are no silver bullets, and even if you have a machine gun full of silver bullets, it's still not going to solve the problem. And I think one of the issues that we have is just this mindset that we need to fix. We're fixing aging. Well, most people will tell you, I don't need to be fixed, thank you very much. Aging is a natural process, and what is happening to me is what happens to everybody. This is a natural process. There is nothing wrong with it. I do not need to be fixed. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine had an amazing idea for an app that would help seniors relive their most cherished memories. Now, most people when we showed it said, I don't care about my memories. I want to share stuff that I'm doing now. I don't want to sit there like in some kind of maudlin kind of, retrospective of my life. This is nonsense. So they want stuff people want stuff that helps them to live and be active, not to reminisce and fix loneliness with a reminder of everything that you used to have. That's not really going to work, is it? Now, we did a survey in our company a couple of years ago, and it was the widest survey in terms of age group that we've ever done. We went from 16 to 89. These are all people who are enabled on the internet. We did it online. Now, one of the cool things is there are 89-year-olds who are using the internet and are on internet panels. This is amazing. Now, what we found is we asked questions that were sort of related to happiness, or things that might indicate that people are happy. So we have here, I felt peaceful, I felt happy, I felt delighted. So interestingly, I guess I'm headed for this kind of valley of despair in my 50s here, because people in their 50s, answered the lowest on I feel peaceful and happy. But look at people in their 70s and 80s. So way more than people in these earlier age groups are saying I felt peaceful, I felt happy, I felt delighted. So I ask you, what's the problem that we should be fixing here? Don't we have a problem with young people? Isn't that where we should be focused in a way? It's very, very interesting. And this is not just our data we collected. There are many similar surveys that indicate that. This gentleman here, for our Japanese members of the audience, I'm sure that you know Dr. Mogi, and he's also the person who came up with this silver bullet analogy as well, so I should credit him for that. But Ken Mogi is a famous neuroscientist, so he comes from the world of hard science. He's a very hard scientist, but he's also someone who has a very philosophical view as well. And he wrote a book which I also recommend. It's almost like if you want the sort of the left-brained and the right-brained view around aging. Let's look at Karen's book and then look at Ken's book as well. And this is the little book of Ikigai. It's a small book. It doesn't take very long to read, so I actually read it. And it was very interesting. And Dr. Moggy talks a lot about this concept called ikigai. Has anyone heard about ikigai? Show of hands. Yep. Some people. Yep. Ikigai is a very interesting concept, I think. Now I've seen there's a gentleman called Mark Wynne who created this model of ikigai. So it's composed of what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, what you're good at, and that creates passion, mission, vocation, and profession. And there are certain deficits, like if I have mission, I've got delight and fullness but no wealth. If I have, my vocation and mission, I've got excitement and complacency but a sense of uncertainty. In C here, when I've got my professional world working, I'm comfortable but I'm empty. I'm successful but I'm empty. And then when you've got your passion working, you've got satisfaction but a feeling of usefulness.'t I'm sorry, I'm tired. I feel inadequate just looking at that. I can't. I'm like, I can't even think about this. This is too much. And this is not ikigai, as the Japanese understand it. So please don't be taken in that ikigai is a complicated concept or some weird kind of self-help formula. It's not. It's a very, very simple idea. Ikigai is small and deeply personal. So it could be something like tending to your bonsai collection. It could be like having a dog. I had to ask myself, what's my ikigai? So I'm not, I don't have children, but I have dogs. And I was like, I love my dogs so much, it's kind of crazy. Of course, dog lovers will relate to that. But that's my ikigai. Like, that's my reason to get up in the morning every day. And that's a really good working definition of what ikigai is that reason to get up. And pin korori, which I was talking about before, exemplified by our late Regina, Elizabeth, that you have to want to live to be like that. So ikigai is what makes us want to live. It's a prerequisite, if you like, I think, to have that pin korori. And neuroscience does reinforce the importance of this. So if you are every day doing something proactive and small, we in Western culture, I think when we talk about life purpose, we always, maybe it's just me, I don't know, you think I have to do something important. I have to do something that helps other people, or I have to, make a difference. But actually, no, you don't. You just have to do something that you care about and that you enjoy. And it doesn't matter what it is, and it doesn't matter what other people think about it. And you just need to do that every day. Now, if you do that, you're going to get some dopamine happening. And that's going to make you feel good. That's a reward for that. And then that's why you get into this kind of joyful and flow state when you're doing exactly what it is that you should be doing, that you enjoy doing. You get into that. And then I think we sort of almost habitually, we sort of code that as a sense of purpose. So, why do I have to get up every morning? Because, my dog needs me. Or I have to trim the bonsai, or whatever it is that is for you. And so our purpose doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be something that you have to explain to anyone else. it can just be something that makes you happy. It's fine. That's ikigai. And also, this is the same survey that I showed you before, so just some different questions here. So I'm interested in many things. I often feel that I'm happy and I have room in my mind. I think these are things that they may well relate to ikigai, what I'm talking about. And we can see again that it's people in their 70s and 80s who are the most likely to say, yes, I have interests. So I often feel I'm happy and I have room in my mind. And unfortunately, again, in the 50s, people kind of struggle a bit. So, I've got to work on that ikigai, I suppose. Now, I just want to give you some ideas of the elements of ikigai, and I sort of, there's no textbook on it, I just thought these look right in terms of what it is. So this is me, obviously. Now, this is me in a Japanese male kimono. Now, the good thing about Japanese male kimono is they look best if you're carrying a few kilos. If you have a tummy, the kimono is the clothing for you. so I was like, do I have to give it back? Although people would look at you a little bit strangely, seeing a middle-aged Caucasian man wearing a kimono. But this is Mrs. Matsushita. Now, she's pretty much blind, but she still has a very active practice fitting kimono, because you can't put your own kimono on, generally speaking. You have to be fitted. Somebody who actually knows how to do it and how to tie it and how to set it up needs to do it for you. So if you're going to ladies will wear kimono for weddings, for example, or very important occasions, like a formal celebratory kind of thing. So I went to see her. She's a member of our Living Best user community, and she said, "Look, do you want to try one of these on?" So I was like, "Okay." But she's got the joy in the details. So fitting a kimono is a very detail-oriented activity. You have to pay close attention to who am I fitting for? Does that clothing suit them? How tight do I tie everything? All of that. In fact, I've got no idea what the details are, but I know that you have to do it that way, otherwise it's not going to look good. So I think this is amazing. And she's blind, but she still fits people in fashion all the time and is in very high demand. So I think this is someone who is actualised on purpose. And her husband here is also very supportive of that. This gentleman here is in his early 80s, and he has this, it's a very unique idea, but he looks at the Chinese characters of people's Japanese names, and he essentially gives you an appraisal of their fortune and their moral character and so forth. So he does it for politicians and so forth. I don't think he was able to do it for me because my name is a Western name. But again, this is something that in order to do it, you have to use your mind. You have to think about it. There's a lot of details there. You have to take it seriously. You can't just kind of, oh yeah, it's this. He looks at it like that. So that's an example of a repetitive process, but one that requires a lot of engagement. And he's just very happy about that. Another example here is this gentleman in the top left here. He's a Buddhist monk, or a priest, I should say. And he has a temple, and what happens at this temple is people bring their old toys to the temple. So we went to see him, and there was just a pile of dolls and a pile of soft toys, and you leave them at the temple, and they get a proper sending off, which is kind of beautiful in a way. But in this case, when I talk about ikigai, I actually want to talk about his daughter-in-law, Yamaguchi-san, because she married the son of the priest, and now she's it's cool. They've got a cool setup with the temple, and they bless toys and so forth, but she's stuck in that role. So I think she's been she's been very successful at carving out her own, what she enjoys doing and her hobbies and her interests and her work, even in the context of that as well. So ikigai can sometimes also be about working within the limitations that you're given, and finding the way to be happy. And I think she's a good example of that. This gentleman here, Mr. Kohlhammer, he's a really interesting guy. So he started off his career as an actor, and then he ended up as a psychological counsellor. He had cancer in his mid-30s, and he was a goner. He was going to die, essentially, and he pulled through. And I think that was a long time ago, but I think that has informed a lot of his thinking and philosophy about life. Now, he told me, I'm not interested in technology, and this was a pity because I'd gone there with the intent of talking to him about technology. So I said, okay, well, show me your phone. Anyway, his phone has more apps on it than mine does. And he's got these hearing aids from Denmark that have an app, and you can adjust the way that the hearing aid works using the app into any kind of situation. So, and it was the 8th hearing aid that he had tried. So this is certainly somebody who actually is, in fact, very interested in technology. But what he said to me, I think, was very interesting, is that we don't want technology to make us less human. We want technology to make us more human, and I think as a manifesto for how we employ technology to help us as we age, I think this is a very good way to look at it. In terms of sense of purpose, again, you can imagine what I'm going to say. Look at the aging adults in their 70s and 80s here. But this question here, I have a role at or outside of home. So this idea that people as they age lose their role, well, at least for the people that we surveyed, which is a representative sample, at least the people that are connected to the internet, this is not the case. But it's again quite worrying about people in their teens and 20s there. So again, where is the existential crisis? Here, maybe not where we thought. This gentleman here, Tajiri-san, he again, this element of ikigai here, engaging with his purpose. He's championing this wheelchair that has pedals on the front. So, and it's kind of an awesome idea because, you know, just getting pushed around in a wheelchair, like you lose your muscular abilities. And this guy has held races for people in their 80s using the wheelchair. So it's awesome. And he's had to, you know, at his age, he's still working out some thorny commercial issues, but he's still very engaged in that. Then Abe-san's another. Now I love Abe-san. She's totally nuts. She's on Instagram and TikTok every day. She worked out how to stream Chinese and Korean dramas on her PC while her husband's watching TV on the couch. She's waiting for the new iPhone 16. She is way more tech savvy than 90% of the young people that work in my company. She's awesome. But she says, you know, ultimately I really want a robot helper. And who doesn't want a robot helper? I mean, it would be great, wouldn't it? And you know, in Japan, there's actually I think in some ways there's a higher normalization, positive associations of robots. So I don't know if you have this in Canada yet, but in what they call family restaurants in Japan, you'll see a lot of these robots that come around and serve your food, and that one's got like a cute cat face on it. Did anyone see Astro Boy when they were kids? Yeah, that was big in Australia. Yeah, so he was called Atom in Japan, but Astro Boy was like big, so big when I was a kid. We loved Astro Boy. But, when we look at images of robots, it's a little bit, Westerners actually have a little bit of an issue with robots. We're a little bit scared of them. Our view of technology in general can be a little bit dystopian. Now, Megan was on Netflix, I think came out a couple of years ago. Now, the movie looks so dumb, I couldn't bring myself to watch it. However, I know the story because I saw the previews, right? So Megan, she comes in, she's a helper for a little girl, and she comes in, it's going to be great because the little girl's got some problems that need help, but Megan becomes progressively inappropriate and ends up, trying to kill the family, right? So this is our vision, this is our Western, contemporary North American view of robots. Like, they're ultimately going to kill you if you're not careful, right? Now, we've done some serious work in robotics in our business. We've done at least 25 projects in the last 3 years on robotics. And these are some quotes from caregivers. We're asking them, how do you feel about robots? And so in Japan, I think this is a typical respondent. She says, look, to be honest, I don't want to have a robot, but caregiving is tough work and I'd like to have a little help. Whereas in the US, the response was, I wouldn't want that for any of my patients to have, I don't know, a robot's mechanical finger going into their neck or eye. I just see too many lawsuits with that one, right? So there you go. I mean, are we surprised? Anyway. But we did, just to sort of give you an idea of a project that we worked on, and this is for a major Japanese company that we did this work for. We looked at 3 robot designs that was sort of looking like they were pretty practical to be introduced in the foreseeable future. Now, the first one was called Pillar, which is like it's attached to the roof, but it's like sort of mobile grab handles. So if you're in bed, you need to get out of bed, you can lean over and it will help you, or it could help you reach high, so forth. So it's just this kind of really convenient grab handles to be there whenever you need it. The next one was called Duo, which was actually 2 robots. So there were these arms that came from the ceiling, and again, imagine if you're getting out of bed, it can help you with the arms, and then you can be seated into the chair, which is like a automatic robotic wheelchair, essentially. And then the third one was the Tribot, which, as you can see, is the most human-like of all of these robots. Now, what was closest to being ideal was the Tribot. So it was that humanoid look there. So being human-like in terms of what people are saying that they want from a robot is very important. It needs to be adaptable to specific needs, so people don't just want to have a grab bar, they want something that can do more. They're expecting a bit more from it. It should be mobile, it should be able to move around as much as possible, so being on wheels is better than being attached to the ceiling. It should grow with you over time, so as you gradually need more support, it will do more for you. And people want it to be versatile, even in, going as far as going out and doing the gardening, which personally for me would be awesome. And this idea that the robot is yielding but supportive is like a very interesting idea. Now, I was thinking, back in the 90s, there was this concept of a sensitive new age guy. I don't know if anyone remembers that. But what was a sensitive new age guy? He was someone who was strong and supportive, but he wasn't afraid to cry. And he'd be kind of soft, but hard. I don't know, it's very hard. It's very hard if you're a guy to actually do all of that. Like, it's difficult. But so maybe there's a robot coming for that. But when we ask people, like if you want it to, because people were saying, look, we want the way it feels is very important. Like we want it to be soft, but what kind of softness? And they talked about bread dough. So it's soft, but it's supportive. It springs back. So there's some strength there. It's soft, but there's some strength there. And I think this is what, when we think about robots, it's like people, they like in theory, you want everything from the robot, but we probably want it to come this far. and not the whole way possibly. And also, what we found is people want to talk to the robot. That is the way that we want the robot to. We want to be able to talk to it. So, but not everyone wants to be talked back in the same way. So not everyone wants a buddy or a friend or someone to like hang out with, although some people do. Some people want a servant as well. So yes, sir, I will do that thing for you immediately. And in general, people want to be careful that the robot doesn't start replacing people. We don't want to become dependent on the technology. We want it to assist us and help us with the actual interactions that we have in our life. So a very good role for a robot would be as a helper to a caregiver. It doesn't become the caregiver. It makes everything work easier. And it's early days, but we're seeing in Japan already some robots come on. This is Paro here, and look, it's kawaii. This is a very important aesthetic idea in Japan. Like essentially, it translates as cute, so that's kind of cute. And then this lifting robot here, look, he's cute. Like I don't think they have any lifting robots in North America that look like that, and I think they should. So I think it's very important with robotics and all technology in general to realise that emotion is what drives acceptance. Emotion is what really makes us do things or not do things. To have something equivalent to a human touch in some ways is important. People want to have meaningful conversations. The movements can't be like that, they have to be kind of natural and graceful and soft and warm, as I said. Think about sort of, warm dough that's been bubbling away, pizza dough or something like that. So when we think about in the innovation world, we have this concept called jobs to be done, right? It's just another frame of looking at what technology or what products need to do. But I want to put some different ideas on what a job to be done is. Like the first would be, can tech help us find joy in the details of life? I don't know, but innovators, startup founders, I think this is what you should be working on. Being present and mindful. Is there tech that can help us to do that? There certainly is on the app. There are apps now that people are trying to do that. Settling down to value community and nature and engaging with our purpose. Is this what tech should be doing? Are these the types of products we should be making? And lastly, being authentic and true to yourself. Now, this sounds like probably a little bit fluffy and out there, but this is based on what people value. These are the things that we really value. Once our physical needs are taken care of and once we're comfortable, these are the things that people value. And this is what tech should do. And if we are well served on these areas, we will want to look after ourselves more. It's a virtuous circle in that way. So in contrast to Megan, who's a homicidal maniac robot, in Japan we have Doraemon. Now, I'm not a fan of Doraemon, so if I get the details of Doraemon wrong, please forgive me, but he is a robot cat. I got that right, and I think he came on a spaceship, and he helps this young boy here. And he's 9, and he has all of the problems that someone who's 9 has, bullies at school and various things that happen. But Doraemon helps his friend just live life. He helps him cope with life. He helps him cope with being a 9-year-old. He's a partner in that process. So as a model, I think Doraemon is a robotic model. I think that we could probably get behind more than Megan, for sure. So I think let's shift our perspective on tech to a more values-driven one. So With tech, we're very much, it's very left brain, it's very problem solution. I have this problem, now I've been able to solve your problem, but there are examples of problems that can be solved where people simply will not cooperate because it doesn't fit their philosophy, it doesn't fit their purpose, and so they're not interested in it. So I think we have to have a much more holistic view of technology, and the innovations that we work on should be those that actually help us with our purpose and are in line with a reasonable philosophy. Now, Dr. Moggy suggests what he calls, instead of a magic bullet, which is his analogy, something like a magic carpet that you ride on. Our magic carpet is a woven thing, and it means a lot of different parts have to come together and have to work together to make our lives better. So rather than that quick problem solution idea, that kind of silver bullet kind of idea, Dr. Moggy is arguing for a more holistic and more human and more interconnected view of how we deal with that. And so that story on age tech, I think, and age-related innovation, I think, is to be continued. We'll see how it goes. But I just want to end by saying, what's your ikigai? Let's think about that. Let's be more conscious and mindful about that. And so if that were what you got out of tonight, then I'd be very happy. So thank you very much.